You're listening to The Murder in My Family, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including Missing Persons, DNA ID, Scene of the Crime, Zodiac Speaking, Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Citizen Detective, and Campus Killings. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its host, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information. This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to this episode of The Murder in My Family. I'm Eric Cater-Landin, and today we dive deep into a case that has haunted a family and a community for over 2 decades. The tragic and untimely death of Ruben Pacheco. Independent podcasts like this one depend on word of mouth to bring in new listeners. So if you find that you enjoy this show, please take a moment to rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to introduce a friend to the show and invite them to listen. With your help, The Murder in My Family can continue to grow and reach a new audience. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @MurderInMyFam or on Facebook at facebook.com/TMIMF podcast. If you'd like to support The Murder in My Family and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcasts, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts for only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. You'll unlock a variety of listener benefits and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated, and thank you to all of our supporters that generously donate to help keep the show growing and improving. One last note, please support any of the sponsors that you hear on The Murder in My Family the way that those sponsors support this show. It's with our sponsor support that the show can go on and continue to provide a platform to share these stories with you in every episode. Thank you. And now, on to our show. Have you ever experienced road rage? People can behave in dangerous ways when road rage is involved. According to Zebra, in 2023, 92% of people they polled witnessed an act of road rage in that year. A total of 12,610 injuries and 218 murders have been attributed to road rage over a 7-year period in the United States. In 2022, someone was shot and killed in a road rage incident every 16 hours. 66% of traffic fatalities are caused by aggressive driving. Road rage has been responsible for about 300 deaths since 2013. 30 murders annually are linked to road rage. And 50% of drivers respond to the careless acts of other drivers with aggressive behavior themselves. 37% of aggressive driving incidents involve a firearm, and there's been a 500% increase in reported cases of road rage over the last 10 years. You might be asking yourself, Eric, why are you telling me all of this? Well, road rage is an extremely dangerous thing. It can often escalate and lead to unintended and horrible consequences. As we go through this episode, I want to challenge you to think about your own behavior on the road as you learn about the tragic loss of a beautiful young soul named Lily Rose Garcia. In the afternoon of October 20th, 2015, Alan Garcia had just picked up his kids, 4-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Isaac, from school and was taking them home. He was driving on I-40 in Albuquerque and everything seemed normal until Alan had a run-in with an aggressive driver on the freeway. As Alan was about to take his exit, a car sped over from 2 lanes, causing him to have to swerve out of his lane to miss getting hit by the other driver. In shock and frustration, Alan raised his hands and the 2 men yelled at one another. Alan then sped up to try to move away from the aggressive driver when he heard 3 loud bangs and a final 4th bang that turned out to be gunshots. The driver, Tony Torres, sped off in his car after firing 4 shots directly at Alan's truck. Shortly after this, 7-year-old Isaac told his father that Lily was bleeding. Alan pulled over and a nurse who saw the incident came over to try to administer first aid. Lily was losing blood fast and was taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead by doctors. The tragedy of this case was the senselessness of it all and the careless regard for human life that one man had on that fateful day. Today I'm joined by Lily's mother, Veronica, and she's going to tell us all about her beautiful daughter that she lost in this tragic road rage incident. Veronica has gone on to do some incredible advocacy work, trying to change laws in New Mexico and advocating for people to pause, take a breath, and not react. Because road rage is extremely dangerous, and it does lead to terrible consequences. So again, as you listen to this episode, please take a moment to pause and think about your own behavior on the road, because the price that Veronica has paid is far too high. And I hope that this episode helps to spark that conversation. Hi, Veronica. Welcome to the Murder in My Family. Can you share a little bit about Lily with my listeners so that they can get to know her a little bit before we get into what happened?
So Lily is my 4-year-old daughter. Her name was Lliana Rose Garcia. Her brother couldn't pronounce Lliana, so he would call her Liliana, so Lily stuck. I had her, she was born in September 13th of 2011, and she was the light of my life. She was just so, she was just so spunky. She loved her big brother. She wanted to be a big kid just like him, which they were only about 3 years apart, almost to the day, exactly 3 years apart. She loved to dance, she loved to sing. She was, of course, into Frozen at that time, Minnie Mouse, the Pink Power Ranger. I mean, she was kind of a girly girl, but then she would be, wanting to fight and be the Power Ranger. So it was kind of half and half. One of the things that I always tried to do with both my children is, music and dancing. And that was always a big part of my life. So I wanted to do that with them. And so any type of music, we would jam out to, even going to taking them to daycare. It was our morning routine to jam out in the car. And that song from Happy from Pharrell Williams. So during that time, that came out. Yeah. So that was one of her jams. And she would have been amazing. She really would. I mean, I'm sure every parent says that about their child, but I feel just deep in my heart that she would have been a star. She would have been something. We were a very close-knit family. I had my boy and I had my girl and, decided, okay, I'm good. This is my family. This is, what my life is going to be. I'm a mom and, things are great. We did our outings and our camping and, the balloon fiesta, and Halloween was our favorite holiday, dressing up. And yeah, she was just so bright and beautiful and had beautiful, beautiful big brown eyes and just real fair skin. And she was amazing.
I keep thinking I've seen a picture of her dressed like a princess, like in pink. Am I imagining that?
So one of the main pictures that there is she has a pink shirt on, and then she has pink shorts, and then she has her pink boots. Okay. And these pink boots, now that you say that, she would always wear them everywhere. She loved her pink boots. Yeah. I think my mom may have got them for her. I can't remember right now, but yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. I remember all the pink, but for some reason when I would glance at it, I kind of saw her as like a little princess. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just like the vibe I got from her, but I thought that was a really beautiful picture.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, she loved to take pictures. She was, now with the whole selfies and all of that, she would go and take all the pictures that she could, so all the silly ones too. So we definitely have a lot of pictures that she took of herself.
That's such a gift that you have all of those pictures now. I mean, I'm sure it's painful to look at them, but it's still really beautiful that you have those memories.
Yeah, for a long time, it was hard to look at her pictures because it just hurt so much.
Yeah.
Like I said, she was my world. That was going to be my best friend. You know, my best friend for life. My mother and I are very close. We've always been very close. And so now it's my turn with my daughter. And unfortunately, that was taken. That was ripped away.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Lily sounds like an amazing young lady. And I know this may be difficult for you to discuss, but can you walk us through what happened on October 20th, 2015?
So it was just a regular day. Lliana had started pre-K at Joannes Elementary. It was her second day, so we were getting ready. I went to work, and my Isaac was going to another school right around the corner. My husband, Alan, went to go pick them up, picked up Isaac, and then picked up Lliana. They drove around a little while. It was raining that day, so I know that they were playing in the puddles and stuff with the truck, and they started to head westbound on I-40. And there was a verbal altercation, I believe, with Tony Torres. And it came out to be a road rage incident. And Lliana and Isaac were sitting in the back seat. Lliana was directly behind my husband while he was driving. And Tony Torres shot 3 times from behind. And one of the bullets struck Lily in the head. I was at work. I believe it started right on Coors and I-40. They landed up stopping between Unser and 98th, where they pulled over. I know that Isaac had told Alan, you know, she's bleeding. Pulled over, he tried to help. At that time, she was still breathing. I know there was a nurse that was traveling, moving to Arizona, saw what was going on and pulled over. From speaking with that nurse, who thank God that she was there at that time. She just told me that she held my Lily and rubbed her head. And so I think she passed then. I'm not too sure. I was at work and I got a phone call. I kept texting Alan, and he wasn't texting me back. So it just kind of gave me a weird vibe. Mm-hmm. Finally, he called to my work directly. I answered the phone and he said, put Brenda, who was my coworker, put her on the phone. And so Brenda got on the phone, and all I heard was, "Oh my God, is she okay?" And she hung up the phone and said, "We got to go to the hospital. Lily was shot." I don't remember much. I remember my boss didn't let me drive. Brenda took me to the UNM, and I just prayed the whole time. God, don't take my Lily. Don't take my Lily. I don't even think Brenda pulled up all the way and into the hospital, and I jumped out of the car, and I was trying to go through the double doors. And these paramedics had said, "You can't go, ma'am. You can't go through there, ma'am. You need to go through the other side." And I just kept screaming, "My daughter was shot. My daughter was shot." So I ran to the front and was yelling at the receptionist, "My daughter was shot. Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter?" Security came and brought me into a little white room. And that's when I knew. I've always watched crime shows, and I knew. And so after that, I know more people started coming in, and then the surgeon came in. And she sat down and she said, "Miss Rael, I'm sorry. We did everything that we could, but Lily's no longer here." And I just was angry. I was screaming. And then I was asking, "Well, where's my son? Where's my husband?" It seemed like it took forever. Then told me that they have to take her to OMI. And so I said, "Well, I need to see her. Can I see her?" So they took me into the emergency room, into this room, and they had her covered up to her neck in the blanket. And they said, "Ma'am, you can't touch her. You can't pick her up." And they had a big bandage around her head, and there was blood coming from her nose and her mouth. And her mouth was still kind of open. And I had just asked for a warm washcloth so I could clean her face. So I was just wiping her face, and I was just singing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." And that day it was raining and stuff, and they're like, "Mom, we gotta take her." And as a mom, I'm like, "Please keep her warm. Please make sure she's not cold." So I went back and was still waiting for Helen and Isaac. Again, it just seemed like forever. Luckily that day, there was a firefighter. He had kind of taken my Isaac during that time and took him to his truck, and he became a really good friend to my Isaac. Of course, Alan was questioned for hours and hours, even the days following, I guess just trying to get the whole story. And it was difficult. The community definitely rallied for us, people around the state, people around the country, the world. I mean, I think her story reached Germany and Japan, and it's just unnecessary. Tony Torres, of course, didn't pull over. He took off. They caught him, I want to say 2 days later, which they caught him with like $64,000 in cash. They caught him with cocaine, marijuana. They caught him with, I want to say 5 automatic assault rifles and then like 300 ammunition.
So Tony ran away. The police finally find him after an anonymous tip. Can you share with my listeners what happened after the police arrested Tony?
He was sentenced to second-degree murder and 1 year for firearm enhancement, which is 16 years, and that's just for Lily's murder. And then he has federal charges for the guns and the drugs and the cash, which I think was like 7 years. So in total, he'll do less than 20 years. So I've done my research about him, and he had multiple charges before, dating back to 2004, I believe. Drug charges, domestic violence charges. I know he had pulled out a gun on other people, but he was only convicted of like a traffic ticket is the only thing that I found. And so he shouldn't have been out on the streets.
It's one of those things where when people watch or listen to true crime, they're like, oh, there were all of these signs. There were all of these signs that everybody ignored. Nobody paid attention to. Like, this is one of those examples of there was tons of signs that this person was escalating. His behavior was getting more violent.
Right. It was a tough situation, I think, for everybody involved, because I don't think anybody really reported like road rage in any form, in any way. People were always okay throwing up the hands or giving the finger or whatever, because you weren't worried about getting shot.
Right.
And then on the other hand, like you said, I mean, this guy had a record or this habit of being violent and just never being held accountable for his actions. So it's kind of, to say the least, like a two-way thing where you have somebody that because he was honked at or his hands were thrown up or whatever the case was that
Even if he got flipped off.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right. You know, he was never held accountable for any of the stuff that he had done before. And that's what angers me so much. So much. And it's just, it's mind-boggling. It really is, because 7 years later, look, I mean, there's more homicides than that same year. And that year was violent. 2015 was violent here.
It was a record, I think.
But every year's a record now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. How sad is that? That next day after Lily was killed, that's when Officer Webster was shot.
That's right.
The detectives that were on my case, they came and said, you know, we found the killer. And so, of course, you know, we have all this food and stuff. Please come and eat, you know, want some coffee? And they're like, no, we got to go on another case. Yeah, Officer Webster was shot and died, 8 days later,
Right.
9 days later?
Right.
So he went to trial, or did he get a plea deal?
No, he did a plea deal.
Okay.
And that was tough because they wanted to have my Isaac on the stand because my Isaac had seen him. So that was a big thing. They also, you know, brought up even my husband's ex-wife who lives in a different state, you know, trying to make my husband be the bad guy. And it was just a mess. It really was. They wouldn't allow me to be, if it went to trial, they wouldn't have allowed me to be in the courtroom. And so...
Why?
Because I'm Isaac's mom. And that's my husband. So if we were talking about the case or anything like that. So I don't know if it's a blessing that he took a plea deal. I don't know if it had been more traumatizing for my Isaac.
Right.
It's just, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I just think that, you know, 15 years and then again, only doing 85%. So that's 12 and a half years for killing somebody, you know, and
For killing a child.
Yeah. And he kept saying, well, you know, I was scared. You know, as a gun owner, you don't shoot from behind. If there's an immediate threat, you shoot like this, you know, front to front. You don't shoot multiple times from behind. That's a coward.
Yeah.
That's a coward. That's a punk.
So I know, like you said, before this happened, it didn't really seem like road rage was really part of a conversation, but how was that kind of being thrust into the national spotlight and the national conversation, like your family's trauma and your family's tragedy? What was that like for you?
It was kind of surreal, you know, because everybody's wanting to know, you know, about us and about Lily. So, you know, you never think of being in that situation. But I've had a lot of people reach out and say, because of this and because of, you know, beautiful Lily, I'm, you know, better behind the wheel. I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm not, you know, throwing the finger to anybody, which is good. You know, it is. It really is, because that means her death didn't go in vain. You know, no matter how I will have that pain, that hole in my heart for the rest of my life, at least it's been able to, you know, change others in that form. But I also think that it brought out acknowledgement of the lax laws that we have, the lack of accountability to be held, you know. Yeah. So I think it just kind of thrust us into, you know, the forefront. And it's been a journey, that's for sure. Well, you don't even know the person. Yeah. I mean, somebody makes you that angry because they cut you off or because they threw their hands up or whatever. You know, that's just, you know, if you can't handle your emotions, then you don't need to be behind the wheel.
100%.
You know? 100%. And unfortunately, it seems like now road rage is being reported, and there's a lot of children that are dying. A lot of children that are dying because of that.
Yeah, it terrifies me every day with my son now that he's driving. You know, he's very responsible. He's a good driver, but I know how these people are here.
Yeah.
So you talk about the lax laws. What are some things that you would like to see change in New Mexico?
Well, since she passed, we have been pushing to amend the current 3 strikes law here in New Mexico. Right now, as it sits, it's first-degree murder and second-degree murder. I've learned that trying to get a conviction for first-degree murder is super hard. I mean, there's so much stuff that has to be in play in order to get a first-degree conviction.
You have to prove intent.
Yeah.
Which
premeditation, intent,
like how can you prove somebody intended to kill somebody?
I guess you need to have a plan, a map, and all of that. It's gone to legislation a few times. It's died in the House of Representatives. We wanted to add shooting at a motor vehicle, shooting at or from a dwelling, aggravated battery on a police officer, on a household member. There was a few others to add to it. My thing is there are 3, you get convicted 3 separate times, either by a plea deal or you're found guilty by your peers. If you're getting convicted for second-degree murder 3 different times, bro, you don't need to be out on the streets. So that's one thing that we've tried to push. We're going to continue to try to push. And the other thing is raising the sentences. Again, 15 years. New Mexico, you only have to do 85% of your time. Do the whole 15 years. Or let's make it to 18 years where you can do the full 15 years.
Right.
I don't get Lily back. I have to go and decorate a grave every holiday. I don't get to hear her voice. But, you know, this guy gets to be out in less than 20 years to live his life. It's like, where's the fairness in that? You know, and I mean, I know some people can change, and that's another story. But as a victim, as a survivor of a homicide, it's just not fair. So New Mexico definitely needs some change.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've uncovered in my own experience, but also in talking to other family members in the state who have dealt with the justice system and the legal system here, is that there really is no support. They have a victim advocate, but if you're not calling them, they're not going to talk to you. Right. It's just, and then the defendants get so much support and so much help, and they get to go home and hang out with their family on an ankle monitor, and it's just...
Right.
It just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I think it's gotten worse, like you said, with the ankle monitor and all of that. I mean, we've already seen a few reoffended, even killed people while they're on the ankle monitor. Victims, when we went through the judicial system, victims didn't have any rights, or they're very minimum, or we didn't know. The victim advocates, there was only so many with multiple cases trying to stay on top of it. And I think the federal system has a little bit better way, which I would hope soon, eventually, that New Mexico follows those. As far as with the district attorney at the time, it was Carrie Brandenburg. I remember walking into the office and there were stacks of banker boxes full of files. And these are people's cases. And it's just kind of like, what the hell's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what's going to happen to my daughter's case? I truly believe if it wasn't as public as it was, it may have never gotten somewhat of a justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say somewhat because there's not enough years. There's never enough.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the sentence is. What he did, he'll never be able to make up for, ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the good news is he's not right now out there terrorizing people, but soon he probably will be.
Yeah, less than 20 years. Yeah. What would it be, 18 years? And that's a scary thought.
It is.
It's a very scary thought. I just want people to remember her.
Veronica, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave my listeners with as we wrap this conversation up?
I want people to change the way that they interact with others, especially on the road. And I just want people to really either get involved in their communities or really research who's running for office and who's really going to be protecting you and your family. God forbid that you're in this situation, but the way that things have been going, you possibly will be or know somebody that's going through that.
100%.
And it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare that I still can't wrap my head around. It just shows, again, the lack of accountability. Nobody's worried about getting into trouble. Nobody's worried about anything like that because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. That's why they do what they do. And who's suffering? We're suffering. We're the ones with the life sentence. One day, I just hope that things change. It just needs to change. It really needs to change.
And it makes me mad that we have to have this conversation.
You got to go to Santa Fe one of these days and go to one of the committees and see what, God forbid, something happens to them or their family.
Yeah. And then we see things change.
Thank you for doing this. I mean, you know, I know that you've been able to help a lot of families, and I think it's super important that they have an outlet to keep their loved one's memory alive. That's super important because you don't want your loved one forgotten at all. And I just think I think what you're doing is great. And I'm sure Jacob's very, very proud.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Just thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for taking the time to tell your story. I'm going to leave you with the following words from Lily's obituary. Lliana Lily Rose Garcia captured so many lives with her beautiful smile and captivating personality, singing peace and love, everybody peace and love, while jamming everyone's phones with hundreds of selfies. She always looked at people with her loving eyes and made sure to say hi and see you later. She rarely said goodbye. Lily was always ready to shop at Target, to count the green cars along the way, and to rest in the cafe with Grandma Rosa and her papu Jose Garcia. She looked forward to her small blue icy and made sure her yayak, Isaac, got his big icy. Her favorite downtime was to FaceTime with her grandma Nana Maria and Papa Larry Cruz from Hawthorne, Nevada, formerly of Las Vegas, New Mexico. She loved to share her books and have reading time with them. She enjoyed visiting with her grandparents Jerry and Sharon Geist. She even claimed a room as her own, saying, "Grandma, this is going to be my room." When she would visit, she played with trinkets that were placed around the house. From time to time, she decided to take them home with her and tell her dad she borrowed them because they could fit in her purse. Lily loved spending time at her special cousins Julie and Star Marchese's home. They loved pulling each other around in the wagon, riding bikes together and playing with each other. They always made sure she had a good time when she was with them. Lily also had Roxanne and Charlie Brito at her beck and call. Whatever she wanted, they gave her. Lily will be greatly missed by her Prince Charming, Derek, son of Leo and Victoria Aguillon. From the moment they laid eyes on each other, they were inseparable. Not a day went by that Derek was not asking and pleading to see his Lily. If he were told not now or later, there would be endless crying and tantrums. The attachment they had for each other was like nothing Derek's mom had ever seen before. The memories of driving Derek around in her little truck, squealing and laughing as she did all her tricks, will be forever etched in our minds. They would bring out every toy possible in the house after visits. Victoria would finish cleaning and would find Lily's shoes, purse, books, or headbands.
Derek would take them from her and say he would keep them safe until he saw her. I think she left them on purpose just to go back and see Derek, Victoria said. They called each other my babe, my honey, my Lily, and now he calls her my angel. They were destined for each other, and what they had was true love. She will forever be a piece of him. Lliana had just completed her second day of school at Duranes preschool before she was tragically taken away from us. Lily enjoyed singing, dancing, talking with everyone, and made friends everywhere she went. Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Murder in My Family. We'll be back here soon with an all-new episode of The Murder in My Family, and I hope that you'll join me for it. But before you go, remember that every murder victim means something to somebody.